City County Planning Commission, please come to order. Ms. Martin, would you please call the roll?
Yes, ma'am. Commissioner Rich?
Yes, ma'am.
Commissioner Vitale?
Yes, ma'am.
Commissioner Balance?
Yes, ma'am.
Commissioner Clark?
Yes.
Commissioner Coppinger?
Yes, ma'am.
Commissioner Graham?
Yes, ma'am.
Commissioner Volkert? Commissioner Gay?
Yes, ma'am.
Commissioner Warren?
Ma'am.
Commissioner Madison? Commissioner Houston?
Yes, ma'am.
Chair Runner?
Yes, ma'am. You've all received the summary minutes of the March 21st meeting. Are there any corrections to those minutes? No corrections. I'd ask for a motion.
So moved.
Thank you. In a
Second.
second. Thank you, ma'am.
Commissioner Rich?
Yes, ma'am.
Commissioner Vitale?
Yes, ma'am.
Commissioner Balance? Commissioner Clark?
Yes.
Commissioner Coppinger?
Yes, ma'am.
Commissioner Graham?
Yes, ma'am.
Commissioner Gay?
Yes, ma'am.
Commissioner Warren?
Ma'am.
Commissioner Houston?
Yes, ma'am.
Chair Runner?
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Runner, I request that the record reflect the following: the inclusion of the subject statutes, regulations, and file material, the qualifications of staff who will testify, and I request that you administer the oath to each of those two individuals.
So ordered. Do you swear to tell the truth before this commission? Thank you both. Any questions on the subdivision and site development plans that were in the packet for preliminary approval? No questions. Letters of credit and performance bonds, we do not have any at this meeting, and we do not have any unfinished business, so that'll bring us to the public hearing. First item tonight is docket number 2019-13Z County KTKT LLC has filed an application to rezone a tract of land containing approximately 3.63 acres located at 1850 Blue Level Road from agriculture to residential estate with general development plan. We'll have the staff report from Ms. Ramsey.
Thank you, Chair Runner. We had a pre-application conference on February 20th for the property you see outlined here in yellow. The applicant this evening is requesting the zone change in order to cut off the existing home onto its own 1 acre lot and add the remaining acreage to an adjacent tract, and I'll get to that in just a second. As Chair Runner has already said, this property is zoned agriculture. Its current use is agriculture. Kind of around there, a lot of agriculture and single family for the most part. And the future land use map is also agriculture, and I'll touch on that as well here in just a second. So there's the property as it exists today, and the request is to configure it like you see here. So the house on 1 acre, and then adding the back acreage to the property to the left there. So on the first page of the staff report, under the compatibility with comprehensive plan, the property is designated agriculture on the flume because the parent tract is less than 5 acres and the number of lots proposed is to remain the same. No flume amendment was required. The proposed RE zone is listed as a potentially compatible zoning designation in the agriculture flume category, if exempt from flume compliance as outlined in LU 114. The proposed development may be appropriate if the Planning Commission determines that the proposed development is compatible with the surrounding area. Below that, compatibility with the surrounding development, the only thing I'll point out is the site characteristic review indicates there are adequate facilities and infrastructure other than adequate water flow and pressure to meet the fire control standards of Warren County, which we'll also come back to. The rear portion of the property is heavily wooded, and there are several mature trees scattered among both properties. A portion of a sinkhole stretches across the north-central portion of the property. At the bottom of the page, you see the points to consider. The proposal is exempt from flume compliance since the property is less than 5 acres, and the total number of lots will remain the same. The proposed development complies with the majority of the site characteristics review criteria, and the proposed general development plan complies with the majority of the review criteria for site design and compatibility and meets the minimum requirements of the zoning ordinance. Going on to page 2, I'll just point out a couple things under the site characteristics review. The first is the water adequacy, that it does not have adequate water flow to meet the minimum fire protection requirements. However, the proposal is exempt from this requirement because the number of lots, again, is not proposed to increase. Below that, I've already mentioned the natural features. The applicant has committed to preserving existing vegetation on the property to the greatest extent, and that any development on the property will be outside areas containing a sinkhole. Below that, soil suitability. The property contains soil types that are classified as somewhat limited and very limited regarding soil suitability for septic tank absorption fields. And the last thing, there are cultural or historical resources. The existing home was constructed in 1955, but it is neither listed on the National Register of Historic Places nor locally designated as a historic property. So I'm going to go ahead and go on to page 3 where the development plan conditions are, and I'll read those real quickly. Number 1, in the event of the existing residence is ever demolished or moved, any new residence on the property will have a minimum of 1,600 square feet of heated living space, exclusive of garages and porches. Number 2, no mobile or manufactured homes. Number 3, the existing access to the property will be utilized, and any future modifications to the access to the property will be coordinated with and approved by the Kentucky Transportation Cabinet or the Warren County Public Works Department. Number 4, the existing residence will utilize the existing septic system located on the property. In the event the existing residence is ever replaced, the Health Department shall inspect the current system and/or issue a permit for a new septic system on the property. Number 5, existing vegetation on the property is to remain to the greatest extent. And number 6, any development on the property will be outside areas containing a sinkhole. Moving on to the Focus 2030 category review. Kind of already mentioned that this is exempt from flume compliance, so that's the first thing you see there. No new lots created, complies with LU 111 and 112, and this body should determine if the proposal complies with LU 113. On to page 4, the only other thing I'll point out is kind of in the middle of the page there that the proposal complies with CF 26 as the applicant committed in the development plan conditions to use the existing septic system. And in that same paragraph, the proposal complies with CF 53, although the property does not have adequate water to meet the minimum fire control standards of Warren County. No new lots are being created, and the property is exempt from this requirement. So in closing, I'll go to the staff summary at the bottom. Again, the applicant is proposing to cut off the existing residence on a smaller lot and add the remaining acreage at the rear to an adjacent tract that is zoned residential estate currently. The property is a non-conforming ag lot as it is less than 5 acres, so the entire property must be rezoned in order to reconfigure the lot. The proposal complies with the majority of the criteria assessed in the review process, and this body should determine if this proposal is compatible with the area. So I believe that is all I have, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, ma'am. Commissioners, do you have any questions for Ms. Ramsey? No questions? Thank you, ma'am. Is there anything the applicant would like to add? No, ma'am. Thank you, sir. Do we have any opposition to this request? Do we have any questions from anyone in the audience? No questions, no opposition, then I would ask for a motion, please.
Make a motion to approve the proposed zoning map amendment together with and conditioned upon the general development plan docket 2019-13 Z County. Based upon the testimony and documents presented in the public hearing, the proposed zoning map amendment is consistent with the adopted Focus 2030 comprehensive plan as demonstrated by the compliance with the objectives and actions presented in the staff report. Therefore, the proposed zoning map amendment is in agreement with the adopted comprehensive plan. Further, I request this motion include a summary of evidence and testimony presented by the witnesses at this public hearing.
Thank you, sir. A second. Thank you.
Commissioner Rich,
Yes, ma'am.
Commissioner Balance,
Yes, ma'am.
Commissioner Coppinger, yes, ma'am. Commissioner Gay,
Ma'am.
Commissioner Houston,
Yes, ma'am.
Commissioner Vitale,
Yes, ma'am.
Commissioner Clark,
Yes.
Commissioner Coppinger. Yes, ma'am. Oh, sorry, Commissioner Graham. I already got you. Commissioner Graham,
Yes, ma'am.
Commissioner Warren,
Yes, ma'am.
Chair Runner.
Yes, ma'am.
I think they all said yes, sir.
Motion carried. Our recommendation will be for approval. Thank you. Thank you. You're not going to call for, have opposed to that and have a recount?
We've got 2 Coppingers, 2 yeses.
Your 2 yeses, okay. Next item, docket number 2019-14 ZBG. J&T Property Management Incorporated and Walbuck Development Company have filed an application to rezone a tract of land containing approximately 0.55 acres located at 1328 Adams Street from RM4 multifamily residential to central business with a general development plan. We'll have the staff report from Ms. Hurd.
Thank you, Chair Runner. We had a pre-application conference on March 4th for the property you just mentioned located on Adams Street. And the applicants are proposing to develop the existing building and then actually add on to the existing building with a mixture of uses including classroom, office, and conference room space and residential space that will serve special needs individuals. And I'll get to the site plan here in just a minute. You can see the current zone of the property is RM4, and the current use of the property is multifamily residential. You can see WKU's main campus is kind of to the left-hand side of the screen there. That's all of the property that you see there in green. And then you can see there are also some other multifamily uses in the area, single-family, industrial, and some vacant tracts as well. The future land use designation for the property is mixed-use residential. This land use category applies to mixed-use areas where, taken as a whole, the primary land use is residential in a variety of housing types and densities, balanced by complementary retail, office, institutional, and civic uses. The distribution of land among these various activities shall be implemented through specific zoning, with standards addressing the form and character of development to ensure compatibility. This designation applies to the historic core of downtown Bowling Green, or urbanized areas being redeveloped with the primary use as residential where complementary commercial and services are provided in a contiguous area. Here, development standards should be tailored to emphasize an urban character and a mix and intensity of development appropriate to this unique center of activity. So moving on to the site characteristics review here, I will go to this exhibit here. So this is the existing building you can see underneath, and then there's a proposed addition kind of in this general area here where the cursor is, toward the front of the property along Adams Street. The proposed zone, central business, requires zero setbacks along all property lines, but you can see the proposal wouldn't actually go up to the property line as allowed by the zone. Under transportation infrastructure, we've noted that the applicants are proposing to utilize the existing access to the site, but any modifications to the existing access, whether it be along Adams Street or along the alley, would have to be coordinated and approved by the Kentucky Transportation Cabinet or Bowling Green Public Works Department. We've also noted under natural features that there are several mature trees located on the property. Under site design and compatibility review on page 3, I'll note the surrounding architectural features. Staff has noted that there is a mixture of 1- and 2-story residential, commercial, and industrial structures along Adams Street. There are also taller buildings located in the vicinity. The existing structure is 2 stories, and the applicants have stated in their development plan conditions that improvements on the property would be no taller than 3 stories. Under building materials review, we've noted that the current structure on the property is 100% brick, and that other structures in the area are a mixture of brick, stone, modern masonry, vinyl, and metal. Moving on to the development plan conditions. Number 1, all exterior facades of principal structures constructed on the property after the effective date of these development plan conditions will be constructed of at least 65% brick, with the remainder of the facades being constructed of stone, LP smart siding, EIFS, or other cementitious or modern masonry materials. Plain face blocks shall be prohibited. Number 2, the property may have vehicular access from Adams Street as coordinated with and approved by the Kentucky Transportation Cabinet, and from the alley to the rear of the property as coordinated with and approved by the City of Bowling Green Department of Public Works. Number 3, improvements on the property shall be no taller than 3 stories. Number 4, the property will be developed and maintained to preserve to the fullest extent practicable all trees with a caliper of at least 12 inches located within 6 feet of the northwestern property lines of the development. 5, freestanding signage on the property shall be limited to a monument-style sign no taller than 5 feet in height and no larger than 40 square feet per sign face. Wall-mounted signage shall be allowed. LED signage and internally illuminated signage, whether wall-mounted or freestanding, shall be prohibited. Number 6, the following uses shall be prohibited: pawn shop, tattoo parlor, bingo parlor, adult entertainment, and or retail sales or display of pornographic or adult books as defined in the zoning ordinance, gambling facility, except any business which may sell lottery tickets in connection with its business, commercial parking, liquor stores, and fuel stations or fuel sales. Number 7, new building improvements constructed on the property shall be oriented with a front facade facing toward Adams Street. And number 8, prior to the issuance of a building permit for construction of new building improvements on the property, the plans for such improvements shall be submitted to the Design Review Committee of the Warren County Downtown Economic Development Authority, Inc. for its consultation and comment. And with that, I will move on to the Focus 2030 category review. Staff evaluated 16 items from the comprehensive plan. We found that the application, as it's proposed, complies with 9 of these items. There were 7 that we thought the Planning Commission should evaluate and determine compliance, as there was somewhat of a gray area there, a little bit subjective, so I'll hit on those here really quick. The first one, LU 1.1.3, deals with compatibility. The Planning Commission should determine compliance with this item. And then LU2 looks at quality of development. Next, LU 252 deals with suitability, if the proposed development is suitable in the area. And then HN1, HN 1.2, and HN 1.3 look at infill development and the character and pattern of development in the area in which the development is proposed. And then HN4 looks at a variety of housing options, and the Planning Commission should determine if the proposed development will provide additional housing options in the area. So with that, I'm going to jump back to the points to consider on page 1. The first item to consider is that the proposal is consistent with the future land use map and mixed-use residential category. The proposed development complies with the majority of the site characteristics review criteria. And finally, the proposed development plan complies with the majority of the review criteria for site design and compatibility and meets the minimum requirements of the zoning ordinance. And I believe that is all for the staff report, but I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, ma'am. Commissioners, do you have any questions?
Tell me, where's the entrance and exit here? Is it coming from the alley?
Right now, the only access, to my knowledge, is from the alley.
Okay, it looks that seems to be the case for the property next door as well. And you alluded to coordinating with someone regarding this access?
So, and the applicants may be able to better address your question, but for now, it's my understanding that they would use the access off the alley that's generally in this location here. But in the development plan conditions, they've tried to build in some flexibility to where in the future, if they did want to add an access onto Adams Street or modify the existing access to the alley, they would coordinate that with the appropriate transportation agency at that time.
Other questions before we hear from the applicant? Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
And we'll hear from the applicant.
My name's Tim Bridgman. I'm here on behalf of the applicants. I do not have anything further to add, but we are here. I have many people with me to answer any questions that anyone may have.
Thank you, sir. Commissioners, questions?
Question, Mr. Bridgman. So this will be, the housing will be used for special needs or just the front part of it? Explain that just a little bit. I mean, it's a great concept, but it just...
So the housing will be for autistic kids with the Kelly Autism Program. Right now, the issue is once they get 21 years of age, there's no services for them after that. So the idea with this project is we're going to have a 2-year program. It's a residential program in conjunction with WKU, where it's going to house these kids who are graduated from college or high school and need further services so we can get them out into the workforce and develop those skills that they need. And ideally, this will be a national model for other universities to use.
Thank you.
So will they reside there, or will this be primarily training?
They will reside there, and then there will be a classroom and then some office space as well for their use.
On the front part of the design will be their classroom and training?
Oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
The first floor is dedicated to the office and classroom space, and then I think there's one ADA accessible unit on the first floor, and then the second floor is residential.
Okay. Yeah,
That's correct.
Just great concept. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have opposition? Oh, you have, yes, sir. Please come forward. If you would state your name and address for us, please.
My name is Gary Watkins. I'm president of Walbuck Development Company.
Yes, sir.
If I could add some clarification to...
And you swear to tell the truth?
Yes, I swear to tell the truth.
Thank you.
If I could add some clarification, this facility that's under question with the commission tonight is basically the supportive service section for the apartment complex that lies adjacent and just to the south side of this property. So the actual participants in the program will reside in the property on the south side, which is already properly zoned and is not in question here tonight. the property that we're looking to acquire and looking for rezoning tonight will all be supportive services. That's an existing 14-unit apartment complex. We don't need all that for the program at this time. We plan on retaining 6 apartment units. One of those will be on the ground floor. We have to convert it to accessibility due to what we're doing. And the remainder of the property, and there'll still be 5 other apartment units. 2 of those will be used for a somewhat of a resident manager situation that will have after-hours oversight over the property. And the remainder will still continue to be rented to the general population until such time as it may be needed to be taken over to be used for program purposes. And then we're doing a bump out, as was pointed out, on the Adams Street side, which is approximately 20 by 40 feet, 2-story, to bring a little bit more character to the building itself and to help the look of the facade from Adams Street.
Thank you, sir. Any questions? Questions? Do we have any questions from anyone in the audience? No questions? No comments from anyone? No opposition? Thank you, sir. Thank you.
She raised her hand.
Yes, ma'am. If you would, you got.
My name is Jessica Dunnigan. My home address is 327 Memphis Junction Road.
Would you just pull the mic down a little bit? There you go. Thank you,
Sorry,
ma'am.
I'm kind of short.
No, ma'am. we
Should I
did not
restate?
No, I
Okay.
think we,
Um,
and do you swear to tell the truth?
I swear to tell the truth.
Thank you, ma'am.
I am the property on the other side, and we do have access to Adams Street. And my partners have asked me to come to ask if they can also have access to Adams Street. We have a lot of people that cut through our property because we are the only access for the whole block. And today, we had people that came over, parked on our lot to measure my neighbor's lot. And so we would really like to petition for them to have access to Adams Street, just so they're not going through us.
Could we pull up that photo, that aerial? So she said she's next door, but we need to clarify which property, I think.
I'm the other apartment complex.
On the left?
Correct.
Correct. And help us understand your concern a bit further. So your concern is that if they only have access from the alley,
Already using our property to access their property.
okay, and where specifically are they using your property to access their property?
Through the road on Adams Street?
On off Adams Street?
Correct. They drive
going
straight
down
through
right
our
and go
property,
around.
do a U-turn to go into their property in the back. That's if they make it that far. They usually park on our property. And so if we're going to increase traffic over there, it'd be really nice for them to have their own access to Adams Street.
Yes, I may just touch on that briefly. So I don't know that the Planning Commission would be able to authorize them to have access to Adams Street because that's dictated by the Kentucky Transportation Cabinet.
Agreed, but this is the only place to pose opposition.
Sure.
Would it be accurate to state that the Planning Commission has made provision for this access?
Yes. The development plan conditions allow the applicant to approach the Kentucky Transportation Cabinet about obtaining an access on Adams Street.
Why wouldn't they want to access on Adams Street? I don't understand why they wouldn't want it.
The applicants or?
The applicant.
Do we know
Oh,
if the applicants have contacted the Kentucky Department of Transportation yet?
That would be a question for them.
Let him answer the question or make a comment.
Not contacted them yet. Ideally, we would like access to Adams Street. I think it'd be better for everyone, but here, there's gonna be less traffic if this project gets approved. These kids, 9 out of 10 of them do not own cars, they do not drive. So I think there's gonna be less traffic than there is now. And there's gonna be less residential units as well with this new development.
Commissioners? Yes, ma'am. Did you have something to add?
No, I understand. Thanks
Yeah.
for listening.
Yes.
Thank
okay,
you.
okay. Any other comments or questions? Yes. Mhm.
Let me address a little bit about the traffic congestion. Currently, there are 29 spaces in the complex, and so there's about 2 cars, space for about 2 cars per apartment. Our plans call for 4 full-time employees, so there'll be 4 vehicles, and if there's still 2 vehicles per unit for the remaining apartments, that'd be 12. So that would put us up to 16, where we have capacity for 29. Also, in conjunction with this, as I mentioned before, and it's probably the lady that spoke, this is probably not a problem for, is the adjoining, what's currently referred to as Adams Station's apartments that we're going to utilize for the clientele. There are 34 parking spaces over there, and as Mr. Bridgman indicated, the likelihood of those being utilized at all. So I don't know if there's any traffic coming through the adjoining property that's going to Adams Station. Perhaps not, but the total amount of traffic in that area will be much less. And the ability to be able to persuade the state to allow additional curb cut and as close as the other one would be to the other complex, I think there would be a small to none chance that the state would grant that access.
So the people that live there now, they're going to be, they're giving up their leases and they're moving
Their
someplace
leases,
else?
as their leases expire, those leases will not be renewed, and
Okay.
those
Then-
will attrition out.
So all that, and once all of those people leave, then you'll be able to reconstruct the building and do your
And
construction?
there'll be a few that may be allowed to stay. As I referred to a while ago, there will be a total of 6 units that will remain apartments, but 2 of them will be utilizing with actual staff-type people who will be resident managers, yes. So there'll be substantially less vehicles in that area than there were before.
Got a question, Mr. Rich?
Yes.
Mhm.
For the benefit of the commissioners, if you went down here to Adams Street and you turned left and you went to your property, when you got to your property, would you be able to turn off of Adams Street into your property?
No.
You would have to go to the alley behind
That's
your property and come in?
Yes, that is correct.
Is that the way you plan on coming to your property now when
Yes.
you get this done, through that alley?
Yes, sir.
And will you set restrictions that they don't cut through the young lady? I can see exactly how they're coming. They're turning here, coming through her parking lot, and then instead of going around to the alley.
We
is
can
what she's
certainly
saying.
we can certainly let them know that that's not an accessible route for them. Now, what they ultimately do, of course, is
Do you have any,
be
I'm
a-
sorry to interrupt, do you have any opposition to putting, help me with the term, but those concrete things at the end of a parking space to prevent traffic from coming across?
no, we've got full access on our side to our complex. We would not have any problem. Let me consult with our surveyor. I don't think that would be a problem. Do you see any problem with that?
That's the
Mr.
term
Crowe?
I'm looking for.
Right now, there's a permanent barrier
It's
all the
between,
way
yeah.
from the front of the property to about right here. There's some mailboxes back off the alley.
So
So
if
you
there's-
physically can't converse, like,
If there's a barrier,
right.
Yeah, if
You
the-
have to come out through here and then do a U-turn through the alley to get back on the site.
okay, so I think I may be confused here then. If you would point along that line again. It was my understanding that right there toward Adams Street was where the traffic was crossing, and I think I just heard you tell me that there's a permanent barrier there, correct?
Correct. But,
Coming in that driveway and then going down out the back.
yeah, come in here and do a U-turn back this way to access the property.
So that doesn't cross the neighbor's property, though, if they're going out into the alley?
They're going through their parking lot.
That is the neighbor's
Aha,
property.
okay,
That's their parking lot.
I
Would it be
see.
possible to put those concrete ballasts there to stop them from coming out of their property onto the alley?
Well, that's an exit for them, yeah.
No.
Okay. I would withdraw my request because I misunderstood. You've already got a barrier there. So they're not crossing from one property to the other.
I'll add, right now, most of the tenants are college students. Once they vacate, we may not have this issue anymore. We all know how college kids are, how we were in college. So we'll have employees who hopefully will follow the rules and parking. So hopefully this will not be an issue once those tenants vacate, and we have actually employees who will.
How are you all
we would be agreeable to inquire, but I certainly wouldn't want the vote of this commission to be dependent upon the acceptance of that. As you look at it, and that's a major thoroughfare in Bowling Green, that one access would be right on top of the other access.
To make sure we understand, you're willing to make application. and-
We're willing to inquire as to whether or not that would be acceptable.
And could you define inquire?
We will, yes, we would contact them, let them know what we're speaking of, and seeing if they thought that there was feasibility to that. Okay.
Anything else, commissioners? Any other comments? Then I'd ask for a motion, please.
Make the motion to approve the proposed zoning map amendment together with and condition upon a general development plan docket 2019-14 ZBG based upon a testimony and the documents presented in its public hearing. Proposed zoning map amendment is consistent with the adopted Focus 2030 comprehensive plan as demonstrated by its compliance with the objective and actions items presented in the staff report. Therefore, the proposed zoning map amendment is in agreement with the adopted comprehensive plan. Further, I request that this motion include a summary of evidence and testimony presented by the witnesses at this public hearing.
Thank you, sir. We need a second. Thank you.
Commissioner Houston,
Yes, ma'am.
Commissioner Warren,
ma'am.
Commissioner Gay, Commissioner Graham,
Yes, ma'am.
Commissioner Coppinger, Commissioner Clark, Commissioner Balance,
Yes, ma'am.
Commissioner Vitale,
Yes, ma'am.
Commissioner Rich,
Ma'am.
Chair Runner.
Yes, ma'am. The motion carried. Our recommendation will be for approval. Thank you. Anything new business?
No new business, ma'am.
And meeting is adjourned. Thank you all.